Gene Seroka, the Port of Los Angeles Executive Director, joined us now for more. Gene, welcome to the program, my friend. It's good to catch up with you once again. Let's just talk about how summer went. I know it was a record-breaking July in many ways. What did August look like?
Good morning, John. Good to see you. August is going to come in even better than July, where we had about 939,000 containers. We'll be over 950 in the month of August, including record import numbers. So the caravan of cargo continues for the reasons you mentioned. Underlying economic indicators for us continue to be strong. And then three big geopolitical issues. The extended discussions around collective bargaining on the East and Gulf Coast for ports, the drought conditions in the Panama Canal, which seem to be in better shape, and the ongoing security concerns in the Red Sea all have more cargo pointed our way.
So, Gene, I know this is difficult to do, but when you try and disentangle that, how do you get a read on the actual underlying economy when there are so many issues forcing and pushing, ultimately fueling this volume?
One, the American consumer continues to spend. And where most retailers in the United States put their orders in 90 to 120 days before vessels even sail from Asia, the cargo coming in now continues to replenish inventories even beyond the traditional holiday season. So that, combined with manufacturing parts and components, which are steady, not great numbers, but continue to be steady, that makes up about a quarter of all our volume.
Have you seen a change in the mix, though, of items that you are getting in, Gene? And we were talking earlier, John mentioning the Citigroup executive at this recent conference talking about a shift to more staples away from discretionary spend. Are you seeing that in what's coming through the port?
Lisa, not necessarily right now. A lot on the holiday goods, so toys, footwear, clothing. Much of this information we'll get in a historical sense, about 4 weeks down line, but haven't really seen a big change in mix or customer base. We still have about 125,000 different importing companies that utilize the Port of Los Angeles on a regular basis, and no one organization has more than a 5% share of that cargo volume.
And we've seen some volume actually shifted toward L.A. as a result of strikes on the East Coast. Now you're threatened with strikes in your own region. I'm just wondering how you sort of understand what's the driving force behind this. Do you think that this is sort of something that businesses across the country are still feeling in terms of pressure to keep employees, or do you think that there's some other dynamic here at play?
Well, Lisa, as you and I have talked about before, this is complex, it's nuanced. Number one, the American consumer is buying so that cargo keeps flowing. But again, what folks are telling me directly, and this is going back almost a year and a half, that there are a lot more things to consider in the supply chain when making decisions as to what gateway to use. And the concerns about a protracted labor negotiation, one, have some people a little bit concerned. They started fractionally moving cargo in their allocations our way just as a hedge. Same could be said with Panama Canal, Red Sea security issues impacting the cargo that was going through the Suez Canal. So if you take 2, 3, 5% of your allocation and shift it away just as a precautionary measure, if any of those or all issues start to go in a different direction, you're at least in the game on those routings and you can increase the allocations. Overall, are folks trying to keep jobs? Yeah, and for us, it's important too, because every 4 containers that move across our docks creates a job across a variety of sectors. Super important to the folks in Los Angeles.
Gene, what about the potential for more tariffs?
Anne-Marie, you have to try to figure right now, is this campaign talk or will it be real policy? And the folks that I talk to, I'm here in Washington this week, say this could be real policy. To me, that would change the landscape at a port like ours in Los Angeles forever. 10% tariff on all of the $3 trillion worth of imports, 60% on cargo originating in China, and potentially very high tariffs on cargo emanating from Mexico. That looks a lot different when you start talking about that speed has always been our advantage from North Asia. China's share of our business has dropped from 57% at the close of year 2022 to 43% right now. Yet we've been nimble enough to hustle for that cargo and are seeing real growth out of Southeast Asia. But that's with the advent of more nonstop services and introduction of new ones. We've got to continue to watch this issue because it will have an impact on traditional trade flows. As was just said in the opening, those tariffs mean real price hikes at the end of the day for the American consumer as companies pass those on.
But
that's
Gene,
a concern for
what
all
I'm trying to understand from you is it having an impact today? You know, you see cautious importers wanting to get to the holiday season. Do you see cautious importers wanting to get ahead of potential policy changes?
Yeah, that's happening right now, too. Again, with the most recent tariff introductions on electric vehicles, batteries, and associated parts, we only imported about 2,000 China-manufactured EVs last year. So some are trying to read into policy that'll happen after January. Some are trying to hedge by building inventories a little bit. But I don't think anyone right now has their thumb on exactly what will happen.
Gene, it's always personal and specific to an industry. There's always a bias. What would you like to see from a new administration? What's your number one thing?
Well, the protection of American jobs and American workers are sacrosanct to all of us. But as we said, we're bringing in a tremendous amount of cargo that goes to the retail community we as consumers buy, and our play in the manufacturing sector for parts and components is equally as important. A measured approach, or as has been said, small yard, tall fence, to protect those American interests are key while having rules-based trade.